My name's Sam. I'm the Partnerships and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. And Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed. Before we get started, we will be taking questions throughout the webinar. We'll be leaving them towards the end, but if you have anything that comes to mind, feel free to use that Q&A feature. You'll find it at the bottom of your screen where you found your chat. You can leave questions as yourself or anonymously, so whatever comes to mind, don't be afraid to ask. We'll also be recording today's webinar and sending it out later today in a follow-up email, along with some career opportunities at Unilever, so be sure to look out for that. Here with me today are senior leaders from Unilever. Unilever is the world's most successful, purpose-led business. 2.5 billion people use Unilever products to feel good, look good, and get more out of life. The portfolio ranges from nutritionally balanced foods to indulgent ice creams, affordable soaps, luxurious shampoos, and everyday household care products. Unilever produces world-leading brands including Lipton, Knorr, Dove, Axe, and Hellmann's, alongside trusted local names and innovative, forward-thinking brands like the Dollar Shave Club, Dermalogica, and my personal favorite, Ben & Jerry's. At Unilever, you have the opportunity to work with brands that are well-loved around the world, that improve the lives of consumers and the broader communities. Unilever promotes innovation, big and small, to make their business win and grow, and believe in business as a force for good. Unilever encourages every individual to bring their purpose to life throughout their work. You'll be surrounded by inspiring leaders, supportive peers, and among them, you'll channel your purpose, bring fresh ideas to the table, and simply be you. As you work to make a real impact on the business and the world, Unilever will help you to become a better you. So from the Unilever team here, we have Nimerta and Esther. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start off, we want to hear more about you. Can you each tell us about your career path and what attracted you to Unilever? Esther, I'll start with you.
For sure. So I did my undergrad at Arizona State, and I had concentrations in finance and supply chain. And retrospectively, when I look back at my past in college, I was at a fork where I was thinking either to do finance or go to the path of supply chain. And I'd had numerous opportunities with internships in various industries. So I did a bit in nonprofit, I did a bit in financial services, and my last industry was in aerospace. And I came to realize I loved the finance and supply chain projects I was doing in all these industries, but aerospace was, at the end, I realized aerospace wasn't something I was passionate about. So auxiliary power units on planes didn't bring me joy. So I wanted to focus on something that was more consumer centric, something that I could relate to in some ways. And I grew up with Unilever. I'm originally from Ghana. So Unilever has a very big global footprint across the globe. And so for me, it was looking at CPG specifically and diving into more of what I was looking for in a company. So right out of college, I was looking for a rotational program, a management trainee program, and read a lot about different companies within CPG offering that opportunity, and Unilever seemed like one of the best ones out there. Additionally, I did some research actually to get to learn more about Unilever, knowing that I lived and I used the products. I didn't realize the amount of things that Unilever did as a company, and the mission on making sustainable living a commonplace, and seeing that being consistent and being an industry leader in leading in the space of sustainability and social responsibility truly made me, it made this whole thing a done deal for me to say, okay, this is the company I want to work for. And that's what really attracted me to Unilever. And I think since I've been here, that messaging on sustainability and the sustainable living plan has become really intertwined in everything that we do here. And so I have no regrets in making that decision to work for Unilever.
Amazing. And your background in aerospace and planes, that's insane. Nobody would have guessed.
Sure.
And the point you made about not knowing the span of products and how integrated Unilever is into your everyday life. I know in college I did a project on Unilever. And when I found out the massive amount of products that were under like the whole family, I was like, wow, incredible. I literally use this in every single minute that I live.
For sure. It impacts 2 billion lives a day. So pretty pretty powerful.
Massive number there. So Numerta, I'm coming over to you. Tell us a little bit about your career path and what attracted you to Unilever.
Sure. So similar to Esther, I joined Unilever not knowing how big Unilever was or how massive the footprint was. So just a little bit background about me. I'm originally from Pakistan, so that's where I grew up. That's where I went to school. That's where my parents even live today. So again, Unilever being Unilever, it is a huge global footprint, and especially in the developing world, the kind of work that Unilever does in terms of sustainability or just improving the daily life for the people that live in that part of the world is quite huge and impressive. So as I was going through college, full transparency, I really wanted to be an investment banker. So that's what I focused on. I said, I'm going to do my CFA, I'm going to get into investment banking. And then I graduated in year of 2008, and 2008 was a bad year for investment banking for those of you who remember that time. And in Pakistan, the kind of prestige that Unilever is, I'd say it's the same that Goldman Sachs would have in New York. So if you're not going to land in Goldman Sachs, you would want to work for an organization like Unilever, which has such a big impact on the society. So right out of college, I went through the Unilever recruitment process. Again, given how prestigious it is, they have about 10,000 applicants or so, and then they try to get to the people that really would fit the organization. So luckily made through it, and have kind of never looked back. So I've been with the company 11 years. I started in a rotational program, so I was a management trainee just like Esther. And just the rotational program allowed me to kind of stay with the company. And some of you would know, so I was in Pakistan for 3 years, and then at that time, I was planning to get married. My fiance was here in the US, and I told Unilever, I think I have to go because I can't stay with you guys anymore. And Unilever was like, well, we can make it work because we have presence in the US, and I don't think a lot of organizations around the world will be willing to do that, are able to do that, but Unilever was able to do that for me. So I moved from Unilever Pakistan to Unilever US in 2011. So in Pakistan, I was mostly working with supply chain. Once I moved to US, I'm mostly working with brand and marketing. Out of our New Jersey office, did a lot of cross-category work. I worked in deodorants, tea, NAR. I also spent a year working with in sales. So I did an out of finance rotation, went into sales, came back into finance. And then 8 years later, actually, had another life moment where I had my baby and my husband found a job in Vermont. And we said, well, I had to go back to Unilever and say, wonderful time, 10 years. I think I have to move on because now, another life moment has happened. And Unilever said, well, wait a second, we have a presence in Vermont. We make Ben and Jerry's there. Do you want to, we can find an opportunity for you there. So I said, wonderful. So then last year I changed roles, and now I'm working for the ice cream network up from Burlington, Vermont. So now I'm based here and look after our ice cream factories. So it's been 11 years, and I feel like every time I felt life has changed, Unilever has allowed me to change with them and just continue to be part of this wonderful organization.
I love that story. And Numerta, I think you said on a different call with me that you call yourself a Unilever Lifer.
I do. I do. I think in some ways it's just so interesting that, like I said, in life when things have happened and I've said that, unfortunately I got to move on. Unilever said, well, it doesn't have to be like that. I can support you in what you're doing in your life. So career and life goes together in this organization where they've made sure that I get the opportunity to perform with this organization regardless of where I am. So I'm truly a Unilever lifer. I've never worked full time anywhere else. Even when things have happened and I've said, no, now I will, but I've just continued to stay around.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did just see a question come in specifically related to your story, which is resonating, I think, with a lot of attendees here. So I'm going to draw your attention to this real quick. She said, I'm impressed by your story of moving around. Who did you partner with at Unilever to make those moves? Who helped you in the company to make these difficult transitions?
There's
If you
no
can
single person. Yeah, there's no single person. There's no one person I would say that made it happen. But I would say at each point, I was very lucky to have the right mentors and the right guides, and really the right people that believed um, in my skill, and the people who said, well, we want Nimrita to be around, we will make it work. Because it's very easy in organizations to say, okay, let her go, we'll find somebody else in the market. But I was very fortunate to have my very first boss, Sahil Beg, who then became the CFO of Pakistan. You know, he nobody had ever moved from Pakistan to US ever on a lateral transfer. um, it took him 6 months to make it happen, but he connected the dots for me to at least get me a foot in the door, and then have that conversation with the leadership in the US, and for me to convince them. But I always had his back. And then same thing happened for me in the US. You know, the controller there in the US, I worked with her for 5 years. We had a great working relationship, but we also had a great personal relationship. She knew my, she knew that I was going to have a baby, and she knew what I aspired to do. She knew that I wanted, also I had a career plan where I really wanted to work for the factories. So the mentors that help then connect the dot and say, okay, if you're going to move and there's a factory, which was always your dream to work for a factory, how can we make the two work, right? So not one person, but I think I've just been fortunate to have those bosses and mentors that have believed in me to make this happen. But I think this also speaks a lot about Unilever as an organization, because we do spend a lot of time doing succession planning. Now that I am in this role, I know that I do that for my own team. I have a team of 7 people. We spend a lot of time talking to our people. What do you want to do 2 years down the lane? What do you want to do 3 years down the lane? And having that clear roadmap for our own teams then allows for us to make those moves happen. And also understanding what their priorities are, what their skill sets are. So it's part of our normal, let's say, quarterly succession planning process too. So it is a little bit Unilever's DNA culture, a little bit luck for sure, and just the combination of all of that has made it work.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, I think it definitely speaks to kind of the corporate culture that Unilever has created, that you were able to make these transitions and always have somebody to support you along the way.
Yeah.
So we're going to definitely come back to career opportunities, because it sounds like you've had a lot there.
Yeah.
But I want to take a quick second to talk about work-life balance and what that means to both of you and how you're able to achieve that with Unilever. So Esther, I'll start off with you here.
Yeah, on work-life balance, I'd say everyone has a different work-life balance. Really means differently to everybody, right? So for me personally, I would say work-life balance means being at equilibrium, where parts of my lives are at a balance. It also means peaks and valleys for me. So there might be some weeks where I may be working because it's month end close and may have some long hours, but knowing that the next week there will be those valleys as well. So how to navigate both. One of the things that I love about Unilever is that we have that flexibility of remote work. I know right now with COVID-19, remote work is a reality for everyone, but at Unilever, we had that flexibility. And actually, so moving and translating that in with this new reality that we're all in wasn't a strange thing for us, because it was a norm where you can say, I have a doctor's appointment, so I'm going to be working from home today, etc. No questions asked. And so for me, work-life balance is the ability to be at balance, the ability for the leadership to really make this whole thing human, to say, yes, we all have different things that is going on in life, and to not have the guilt or to not have a pressure of saying, I need to be in the office to do X and Y and Z. Another thing for me that is important that I've seen also at Unilever is work-life balance is how you also define it. And for me personally, I've defined it very clearly to the people that I report to and the people who I work with, and say, this is my structure of what work-life balance means to me. And what I've come to find out is that people respect it. The moment you create that boundary, people actually respect that. And Unilever is big on that. So it's how you create it, but if you also define it, I do believe that people around you would respect it. And that's what I've seen at Unilever. We have the tools to make it a seamless process. I've seen many people on my team take advantage of it with no questions asked, and we applaud people for doing so. But I've also come to realize in my career these past 4 years that when I create that boundary, I get it's respected, and people help me maintain that and keep me accountable to it.
Yeah, that's so important to be able to create those boundaries and not, have like people putting up fights with you along the way, and just to make sure that it's respected the entire time.
Yeah.
Nimerta, I'm going to come over to you now. So can you tell us a little bit about what work-life balance means to you and how you've been achieving that Unilever? I know you kind of touched on that already, but if you want to give us some more details about that.
Yeah, so for me, work-life balance is, as life changes, you figure out how to make work balance along with it. And I mentioned this a little bit before also is, when earlier in my career, like, my life was very different. My husband used to work in a different city. I used to live in New Jersey. I could stay at work until 7 every day. That was my choice, and I did that, and I worked on things that I wanted to work in office, and I was the last person to leave. Nobody People respected that. People gave me the opportunity to do that. Unilever recognized that this was what Nimartha's choice was. And then life changed, right? Now I have an 18-month-old. Now that doesn't work for me. What works for me is that, I need to be out by 5 o'clock. I need to go pick up my baby. I need to be with her. And then if something's important, I will log back on when time will allow for me that to do that. So to work for an organization that doesn't judge you for either of that, right? It wasn't that Unilever was asking me to stay behind till 7, or Unilever is asking me to leave at 5. It's my choice, and that empowerment is, I think, really, really encouraging in this organization, because you set your own rules. We are a performance driven organization, so I'm not saying that I still need to do my work. I still need to deliver, but I don't care how my people on my team, what time, what place they do it, as long as they are delivering. And then the same is not, expected of me. So I know that in a lot of organizations, that empowerment is not there. And I would say in Unilever, it's for us to figure out what balance means for us. And I think that's very, um, that's very freeing as a mother, as a wife, as a sister. I figure out what that work life balance means for me every single day. And then I think, again, one mentor had at one point explained this in one of the webinars, in fact, at Unilever, said, draw a grid out for you, and on one axis write important, and on the other axis write urgent, and put your task in that matrix and say, not everything that's important is urgent. Not everything that's urgent is important, right? So if something is neither urgent nor important, question why you're doing it in the first place. Again, Unilever allows us to have that empowerment. If something is urgent but not necessarily that important that you need to work on it, figure out if you can delegate. So empower other people in your team to work on it. And if something is important but not necessarily urgent, make sure that you take time to do it, because a lot of times very important things but not urgent things go on the back burner, right? So figure out when you're going to have the bandwidth to do it. It's something that's worked for me. I start my Monday mornings trying to come up with, those 4 buckets. So what works for you? I think everybody figures that out themselves. It's not an easy balance to have, but everybody needs to find out what that balance is.
Yeah, I think I love, first of all, that exercise sounds really important. I feel like I can use that in my personal life as well, just to make sure I'm getting everything done. Love that. And then I think the note you said about, especially for working parents, having the ability to create your own schedule and know that you're getting your own work done, without having maybe those set hours or that standard face time that many companies unfortunately still require as part of just the basics of working. I think that is really empowering and a really great opportunity that you both been able to utilize during your careers. So Nimerta, I'm going to stay with you here, and we're going to jump back a little bit to career opportunities. So what kind of career opportunities have you benefited from at Unilever, and how have they impacted your career? I know you touched on this a little bit with kind of moving around and creating succession plans, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so in Unilever specific to finance, we work alongside our what we say functional leads are. So the way the finance organization is structured is so we'll have marketing, we would have sales, we have supply chain. Among finance resources work with those functional leads to provide what we would say value to the business. So when you are working with a marketing lead, you're mostly working on innovation business cases, you're working on brand P&Ls. But then if you are in supply chain finance, you're mostly working with the factory directors who are looking more closely at the cost in the factories. So in Unilever, I love this aspect of finance because then it allows you to wear different hats along your career. You're not really fixed into one role. You do a stint, so to speak, 18 to 24 months. You may be working in the tea category on Lipton's brand panel. But then once you've really mastered that part of finance, your next rotation may be in a factory in ice cream, which is what I'm doing right now. So just that wearing those multiple hats, what it allows you to do. I've been with the company 11 years. I feel like I've touched every part of the organization through this rotational program. I've done marketing finance, I've done sales finance, I'm now doing supply chain finance, and you kind of chalk your own career. You say, okay, what are the different parts that you want to hit? And you do that through your succession planning process. So really, I think the way finance is structured is we are decentralized, but we work where we think we can add the biggest value. And that in turn adds value to us because then we understand not just one part of the organization, we eventually learn the organization end to end. So a ton of opportunity in each one of these spaces. It depends on your own flexibility and willingness to learn.
Great. And Esther, same question to you.
Yeah.
What kind of career opportunities have you benefited from, and how have they impacted your career at Unilever?
Sounds good. So in my previous story, I talked about joining the management trainee program and that being a big differentiator for me for Unilever. So I've been at Unilever for 4 years. I've actually done 4 roles within those 4 years. As Nimerta mentioned, rotations are it's just part of the culture and DNA of Unilever. And being in finance, I always consider finance as a support function. And so we're supporting these functional leads in these different spaces. And to be a better finance individual, you really need to learn all these other aspects of how the organization runs. And so for me, I had my first rotation in sales finance, working with the field teams on our go-to-market strategy. And then my second rotation was more so digital and technical focused. And one of the things that I had, coming into Unilever, I didn't really have a technical background. And so I was a little nervous about that role, to be honest. And then, once I dived into it, I came to realize I had a new love for digital and the technicalities, and I really wanted to learn more about it. So that was all in logistics finance, and that was my first exposure to supply chain finance. And then from that role, I went into a more core FP&A finance role, so doing month and close reporting. And again, just in every journey before the chapter begins, I get slightly nervous and say, is this something I'll be good at? Or is this something that will help me in the long run? And I think I ask myself that question all the time. And it comes with just the newness of a role and just rotating very quickly that way too. Your muscle of learning quickly is always developed. So you go into a role and then, the first 3 months, you want to learn everything and then start delivering value in the 5th or the 6th month and the 7th month. And that's really created that muscle to learn very quickly in every different role. But one other thing is all these roles are connected in various ways. And so even moving from sales finance to marketing finance, I partnered also with out-of-home ice cream and tea. Actually, Nimerta did tea as well. So I inherited a bit of that, also doing innovation business cases and working with the marketers and then going to logistics and then coming back to this FP&A role. Everything was connected. And my role was all about doing the performance management for top line, which is a very important metric to the company and very sensitive, very strict deadlines, very strict timelines. And being able to deliver in these various roles, I think really truly helped me evolve in my career. I came to realize that I really had a passion for the technicality, but I also wanted to work on projects, because in my logistics finance role, where I did a lot of digital projects and working with the IT teams, I really enjoyed that as well. So for me right now, my passion is to do a hybrid of both. And my current role in M&A is really a bit of an epitome of that, because it's a bit of core finance and working with the P&Ls with these new acquisitions, but also working with the integration aspect, the uncharted territories that we call it, because these are white space areas we've never encountered. And that brings me joy. And that is part of my career wish. It's really intertwined with my purpose of working in these uncharted territories. And I think in these roles that I've gotten so far, as Nimerta was saying, just having these mentors along the way to guide me in fulfilling that purpose has been very crucial. So I'm truly in a role that epitomizes that purpose of a hybrid, we call it FET, which is the finance excellence, which is the core finance, a bit of projects together, and really working in this white space area that really we're defining as we go, is something that I've come to really enjoy and has evolved in my career progression at Unilever.
That's amazing that you've been able to find that in your career currently. So I'm going to give our panelists just a second to each catch their breath. They've been doing amazing so far. I see that we have a lot of questions coming in, which is really, really great. I'm going to get to as many as possible at the end. Feel free to keep them coming. You'll find the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And like I said, we'll get to as many as possible. Okay, so Nimerta, I'm going to come to you first with this next question.
Sure.
How do you incorporate Unilever's culture into your everyday work, and how do you find that it impacts your team?
Yeah, interesting, right? So when you become a Unilever lifer, you feel like you've not seen a culture other than Unilever. Uh, so I'm going to only can speak from my experience. Um, Look, Unilever culture is a lot driven by what Esther was just talking about, is purpose, right? So we really, really encourage everyone. So it doesn't matter what your rank is, doesn't matter what function you work in, doesn't matter if finance, marketing, what you are. It's really ingrained around purposeful brands, and our key philosophy is that people will with purpose thrive, right? People that and brands with purpose grow, right? So as an organization, we want to have brands that truly have a purpose and about what they want to achieve in the marketplace. And same for people, right? We understand that people that have purpose thrive in this organization. So you wanted that for yourself, you want that for your teams, and you can really see that if you empower people to do their jobs in a way that it fulfills their purpose, they do much better, right? You have to believe in that philosophy if you want to be in Unilever. You take Ben and Jerry's as an example, which is all about, activism. You take Dove as an example, which is all about women's self-esteem. Those are the brands that have a purpose, and we see that they do better in the marketplace than, frankly, brands that don't have a clear purpose. True for employees as well, right? So I think in that, we then have to figure out, um, that purpose has to come into sync with what the organizational goals are. We also are, again, I said, we are a performance driven organization. We want to be able to achieve our goals. We want to be able to achieve our targets. So the two have to marry up. And that is our key job as leaders in the business, is to say, I need to allow people to recognize their purpose. I need to deliver these performance goals. How do I marry them up together? So we have a very clear top-down purpose. We have very clear performance targets, and you will be surprised how closely linked they are as they are set from our leadership. So we have to really thank our leadership in that way. An example would be, what we are doing around PCR, so post consumer recyclable products. That's a purpose for the brand, but then it becomes a target, which then becomes a target for our marketing teams, and we in finance have to then figure out, okay, what does it cost to do that? What does it cost to really give consumer a Dove bottle that is from recyclable plastic? And then we in finance have to work out on the business cases, but it has to be linked all the way through. It has to be top down from what the brand's purpose is to what the financials are. And we really believe that people who believe in that purpose will do a better job of doing that business case, because they understand what the consumer and customer impact is. and therefore it will drive them to do a much better financial analysis, which will then lead to much better success in the marketplace. That makes sense. So everything we do has to ladder up to it, and if not, then you have to really question that urgent important matrix is, why am I doing it, right? If it doesn't fulfill any purpose, then why am I doing it? And I think successful teams in Unilever do a much better job of linking to purpose than the ones that are more, let's say, in the middle of the road.
Yeah, a culture driven by purpose. I think that's something that a lot of women, at least I know on the Fairygodboss site, that's something that really resonates with them, is they're always looking for something with purpose, you know, not just looking to kind of bide the time, I guess you could say. So it's really great to hear. Esther, I'm going to jump to you with a different question that I know you can speak on, because it's something that we hear a lot on Fairygodboss. A lot of people ask about it. So do you belong to any business resource groups? I know typically they're called employee resource groups, but at Unilever you have business resource groups. So do you belong to any? And if so, which ones? And how have you or the company benefited from them?
For sure. So I was saying that our mission at Unilever for Business Resource Groups is to promote a more inclusive environment while motivating our employees to contribute to Unilever's success. And personally, I've been involved in two groups that are on campus in the EC New Jersey office, and that is the Black Excellence at Unilever, which is a group that I've been going into a lot of events. I think with the Black History Month in February, we had a lot of events around Black history and all the amazing contributions that people of color have given to the community. And one of the greatest events was really, for me, was going to the African American Culture Museum in DC. And for me, that was a really amazing event, and it was all paid for by Unilever. So they got us a bus and they shipped us all there, and it was a really great experience for me. I was also a part of Enactus. So Enactus is it's a group actually that is in universities across the country, and they focus on social entrepreneurship projects, which is quite in line with Unilever's purpose in really contributing to the community. And they help a lot with small businesses, nonprofits, and improving projects or improving different business needs in these different spaces. And the Enactus group at Unilever supports these students. So if it is mentorship on marketing or mentorship in financials or even funding to help them drive social entrepreneurship projects and to be successful in that, this group empowers students that are local in our vicinities to help them achieve those. And so it's a really great group to be a part of. There are other groups. So we have Galvanize, which helps women in advancing. We have United Parents, which is actually a new group, I believe, that came out of an employee who really was passionate about this, which is fostering a community where Unilever working mothers and fathers feel empowered to focus on both their families and their careers. So what Nimerja talked about, there's an entire resource group that's dedicated to that as well. There's a group around Pride. There's a group around Men as Allies, and also the Latin American Business Network and Asian Business Network. We have different resources on campus, and it's really, is this something that you want to join, or is it something that you're passionate about? You can definitely be more involved in that as well. And for me, BU has been a great experience thus far. And Enactus was also an incredible experience for me as well. It also gave me the chance to, I'd say, network with others who I don't closely network with or closely work with in my current roles. And so it really exposes you to other people and other passions who are like-minded at Unilever as well.
That's amazing to hear. So many different groups. It looks like
very much so.
Yeah, so many different options. That's awesome. And now I have a finance specific question, because I know a lot of people are interested in finance, and you both specifically work in finance at Unilever. So Nimerja, how is finance structured within Unilever? I know it's not kind of traditional.
Yeah, so I spoke about this a little bit. So we are what I would say have more of a decentralized structure. So we have teams that support the functions. So marketing and sales mostly based out of Englewood Cliffs. That's where our head office is in North America. And we have finance teams that support the marketing and sales functional leaders, right? So you would have people that work with brand teams. So we, in North America at least, we have work across 8 different categories. So hair care, for example, is a category, personal wash is a category, skincare is a category. That's all within the beauty and personal care business. Then we also have foods and refreshments. So condiments is a category. And then we have savory as a category within foods and refreshments. We have ice cream as a category, and then we have tea as a category. So all of these have marketing teams. So you will have dedicated finance people, but that will support the marketing teams that lead those categories. So they work on innovation business cases, they work on category specific profit and loss statements. So that's what most of them do, is really forecasting out the P&Ls, figuring out what our top line growth or our volume growth looks like, figuring out what our profitability goals look like, how much money are we going to invest behind our brands, so how much marketing expense we can afford. So those teams are really working with the marketing part of the organization. Then we have sales finance. So similar to marketing, but they are more customer focused. So there's a Walmart team, there's a Target team, those are sales guys, and then we have finance people that support them on customer P&L. So what kind of growth can I expect from Walmart this year? What kind of incentives do I have at Walmart? What does my trade structure look like? What is my Walmart net profitability looks like, right? So a customer view of the organization. So that's what we call CD finance does. So those roles are mostly based out of Englewood Cliffs. And then we have in Englewood Cliffs what we will call controllers team or finance excellence team. So in that we have our S&OP teams. So they do more of the sales and marketing forecast. We have FP&A. So these are relatively smaller teams, but they more work with the controllers to kind of aggregate the data across the different categories to see what does my total North America looks like. And then a third pillar and very important one is the supply chain finance. So these are teams that are not necessarily based out of Englewood Cliffs. There is a function, there's a component that's based out of Englewood Cliffs. That's where Esther is. But we also have dispersed teams that work within each one of the factories. So we have 14 sourcing units in North America that are factories, and we have finance teams within the factory that work with them. And they are more working with what we call the site leads or the factory leads to manage a factory P&L. So how much am I spending in labor? How much am I spending in repairs and maintenance? What does my depreciation looks like, etc. And then we have again a centralized group in Englewood Cliffs that does hardcore controllers work. So more around benefits, accounting, pension, accounting, insurance, business partnering, or benefits teams. So I would say those kind of make the bulk of what finance teams would do. We all report into the CFO, so Eric Tiziani, who's our CFO, but we all kind of are a little bit separated out in terms of even physically where we sit. It's not that entire 200 people in finance sit together. We actually sit with our business partners. So people we support are the people who we sit with, and really those are the people we work with day in and day out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very interesting, very different than, what is probably perceived as normal.
Normal finance.
Yeah, exactly. But I would love to move into some audience questions, unless Esther, did you have anything to add to that, or was that pretty much everything that needed to be
covered
said?
it very well.
Okay, perfect. So let's move into some questions from the audience. Yvonne has this interesting question. Are remote positions offered across the company? Like, does everybody have the option to work remotely or work from home, or is that something that needs to be discussed per manager, per team? And either of you, whoever wants to answer, whoever feels more comfortable with that.
I could go first. Okay. I would say most positions are not 100% remote. So actually most positions are stationed somewhere. Either it's in Englewood Cliffs or at the factories or at the DCs. We have a few positions that I would say are 100% remote. But they're relatively few. Most finance positions would be somewhere. In that, we definitely allow employees to figure out what their schedule is. So, you could pick a day to work from home. A lot of times it's a Friday. You pick and choose. There's no clocking in at 8 o'clock. You can choose to come in at 8 or 9, or you can choose to leave at 5 or 7, whatever works for you. There's a lot of flexibility in there. And the key reason for this is because our role, again, fundamentally in finance is business partnering, right? So we work very, very closely, essentially have to understand what our brand strategies are or what our manufacturing strategies are. And that does require some amount of working together with our business partners. Doesn't matter if you saw another person in finance, that's totally fine, but you have to see your brand director or your marketing director to then be able to do that work, right? So some amount of co-location is necessary for you to be a good finance business partner. And therefore, truthfully, not most of our positions are not 100% remote. Very few of them are.
Yep.
Esther, would
I'd
you?
agree
Yeah.
with that as well. I'd say though there are some exceptions where, for instance, it might be a family issue, family
Yeah.
emergencies, etc., where you can work remotely through that experience, and your manager is usually very fine with that. Actually, sometimes we work with
Yeah.
HR as well to make sure you have everything that you need in those circumstances. But as Nimarta said, we don't have a lot of those fully 100% remote roles, but they do exist. And I also know some roles that are also shared as well, where some people do the first 2 days and another person does the second half of the week. So we also have those unique roles as well, where it's almost like a shared role. But those are also few and rare, but they do exist within the organization.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Esther, I'm going to direct this next question to you first. This anonymous attendee asked, both of you started in a management trainee rotational. What's the best way to find out more information about these programs?
Yeah, so for me, the rotational program that I joined, also for Nimarta as well, was right out of college. So it's called the Future Leaders Program at Unilever. And so if you're going from really right after your college years into coming into corporations, that's the program, and that's what it's called. About it. It is a really great program because it's a 3-year rotational program, and every year you rotate into a different role within finance. So it could be, as Nimarta just talked to you about the structure, a brand role supporting the brand teams, supporting the field teams, could be in supply chain finance, or also could be in a finance role in controllers as well. So different rotations, and the goal is to give you the breadth of experience so that you are manager ready by the end of those 3 years, and you have evolved during those 3 years to learn a lot about finance and to really understand the end to end. For me, it was really helpful as well because it helped me expand my network very largely in 3 years, because every role you have a different team, you have a different manager, you just really learn different ways of working very quickly. And it was, I think it's one of my key successes at Unilever was really contingent on these rotational programs and the breadth of experience I learned from those roles. But it's called the Future Leaders Program, and it's available on the site. So feel free to reach out to us actually after the call to learn more about it.
Awesome. Nimarta, do you have anything to add, or should I move on to the next question?
Nothing to add.
Okay,
Esther
great.
covered everything. I did it in Pakistan, but it's very similar to how they do it in the US.
Yep.
So right out of college.
Okay. Nimarta, I'll start with you here, and I would love to hear from both of you on this because I think this is a valuable question to ask. An anonymous attendee asked, I want to know if there are any tips you can share with us in order to land an opportunity at Unilever, since sometimes I feel that just applying online isn't enough. What else can I do? I know, tough question that we always get.
Right. Look, you're asking a Unilever Lifer, so I probably am not the best at this. I think the couple of things that I would look for, I can speak to that. I've done a lot of hiring in my career, and what am I looking for? Is is like we said, finance is a bit unique, right? So we're really looking for people who are adaptable, who have the flexibility to be. That rotational structure is not for everyone, to be very fair. Like some people may want to just figure out how to do accounting, and they want to do that for the next 5 to 10 years, right? We're looking for people who have that personality and also that flexibility to be able to work with the marketing guy and talk marketing. And then 2 years later, you have them work with the supply chain guy and talk supply chain. Very different, right? Very, very different. When you talk to marketing people, they talk completely different. Their KPIs are different. Their goals are different. They all talk about brand equity. They have really big aspirations about your innovation. And your job as the finance person is to get the best 50-50 call, the best view of what realistic sales and profitability could be. Because in finance, we are the ones who kind of bring them down a little bit and say, okay, I don't really think your innovation is going to do that well, right? So having that skill set, and while truly helping them be better custodians of the P&L, right? So the business partnering is really important in our organization, and we're looking for that skill set. So we're not just looking at, what GPA you got, but can you have that conversation with a marketing director and land successfully? And we let you do that for 2 years, and 2 years later, we will send you to a factory to go talk to a supply chain guy, right? Who will talk completely different, who will talk about machines, who will talk about operational efficiency, who will talk about how to manage blue collar labor, who will talk about payroll, and you have to then learn that, right? So we're looking for that skill set in people. Are Is this something that will excite them? Is it something that they will be able to do? And for me, that's the key thing I'm looking for is, would they have not just they have to have the core finance skills. They need to know their debits and credits, but would they be able to do that business partnering uplift? Because easier said than done, right? So that's a key thing for us in the finance part of organization. And I think that's something I really look for, not just from a resume, but in my first conversation. That's what I'm trying to assess.
Awesome. That's really helpful advice. Esther, I'm going to come over to you.
Yeah. I wouldn't repeat what Nimrata said, but one of the things I'd say is one of the things I also look for is the ability of a candidate to navigate through ambiguity, because you may not have everything 100%, especially in such a big corporation. And sometimes you have to make a call and take a risk. And it's just in that environment with the little information you have, what can you do to deduce and make the right decision in that environment? And for me, that ability to navigate through that ambiguity is key, especially in roles in finance, because you are also sometimes the voice of reason, because people are passionate about an innovation. As Nimrata said, marketers are very passionate, but you couldn't be the voice of reason even if you don't have all the data in front of you to ground them and to also kind of help them and guide them as to why you believe it is this way or that way. And we're respecting them in doing so as well. I'd say another thing for me also is just a willingness to learn. So as Nimrata has mentioned, you couldn't stay in a role actually and focus on that role throughout your career, or you can rotate we call it 24 months, rotate every 24 months. And so it's, once you get into a role, it's just the willingness to learn, ask questions, the curiosity. That's what I look for in candidates as well, because that's going to help you to be successful at the end of your rotation. Once you're done learning, moving on to the next rotation is how quickly can you learn, how quickly can you ask those key questions that will make you successful in bringing value into that role. So for me, it's both. So willingness to learn, and also navigating through the ambiguity in such a big organization.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. And I'd just like to make one more note. Find connections at Unilever if you can. Right here, we have 2 amazing connections that you can go make right after this webinar.
Sure. Yep.
Just by participating, they've both demonstrated that they're willing to help other women, learn more about Unilever and potentially land roles there. So reach out to your new connections, find an in, as we like to call it. But thank you both again so much. Apologies again for the slight technical difficulties, but I'm glad everybody could tune in.
No worries.
And I think we both learned a lot about your experiences. So thank you both again.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It was wonderful.
Yes.
Stay safe, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you at the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.